Hi and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be giving you 12 suggestions of what your kids can be doing instead of being on screens. And so if you are new to my channel, I created this channel as a homeschooling resource to give you different curriculum ideas, organizational ideas, and ways to invite Christ into your homeschool space. So if you're interested in those things, please hit that subscribe button and let's get into these suggestions. Okay, first off, I just want to start off by saying these suggestions kind of are more applicable to our interests. And so I just want to give you some different ideas of things that you could do, and then you can apply it to what you guys like to do, because it's going to look slightly different for everyone depending on just what you like to do, what your interests are. I'm not going to say go copy this video word for word, because maybe you hate some of the stuff I'm going to tell you that we like to do. So don't do them if you don't like to do them. Find other things. I'm just trying to get your brain flowing here so you can have some ideas of ways to keep your kids off screens, to give them other things to do. And then also put your suggestions down below for how you keep your kids off screens, or what you like to do instead of screen time. I would love to hear more suggestions of things that work really well for you, or maybe even things that don't work well for you. I just love to hear all of your different ideas, so make sure you put those down below. And I also have another video that I made at Christmas time that kind of goes along with this video. I'll make sure that it's linked down below. It's non-toy items, like Christmas items, things that I think are really good for kids that help them with their imagination, a lot of fun games. And so I think there's like 11 different suggestions or something on that video. I'm not exactly sure, but I'll make sure that's linked down below so you can check that out for even more ideas. That's like a bonus video. So just as a reminder, this is part 2 to a video I made a couple weeks ago about keeping kids off screens. And I think I gave 11 or 12 suggestions there of ways to get your kids, keep them off screens. And so this is what they can be doing instead of being on screens, and that one's how to keep them off screens. And so I'll make sure that's linked down below as well, so you can go check that out if you haven't seen it yet, because it's a good one. It's a little bit of a saucy video, but it's fun. Anyway, so you can go look at that one. But without further ado, let's get into these suggestions. So my first 2 suggestions are more like guidelines than suggestions. Sorry, that just makes me think of Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't know, that's what pops into my head.
You're pirates, hang the code and hang the rules. They're more like guidelines anyway.
So the first suggestion or guideline is to be off screens yourself when we're going through all these things. These suggestions are only going to work if you are implementing some things yourself. It's not gonna just be like magic. So if you are off screens and paying attention to your kids, they'll be more likely to engage in the ideas I'm going to give you than they would if you're like glued to your phone or glued to your computer. I know we're all guilty of that. We all have to remind ourselves to just put it down and to focus on our kids, because no matter how much you try to convince yourself that you can multitask, you can't do that, and your kid's gonna feel left out. And so you need to just close it, turn it off, whatever, and focus your attention on them, and then these suggestions will work. My second suggestion / guideline is to have sacred family time. So what does that mean? Have a time of day, or several times of day really, that you're not on screens. So in our house, that's like dinner time. We try not to have our phones or screens anywhere around dinner time. Like that's sacred time, or even mealtime in general. Usually we don't, we might be for breakfast or lunch, maybe I'm reading a book or something on my Kindle, but usually we try not to have screens around mealtime. And that's how that works for us. You could have it at bedtime. Maybe you just read books, or maybe you do watch a short little something on a screen, but then the screen goes away and then you're just focused on bedtime with kids and all that involves. So make sure there's like sacred time in your home when there just isn't screens, so that you can really focus and just enjoy being together as a family. Okay, so my third suggestion is to let them be bored, which I mentioned in part 1 of this video, but I wanted to elaborate on that idea. And just recently, it was last month, I read a quote by Julie Bogart from Brave Writer. I follow her on Instagram, and I wanted to read part of the quote to you. It's on, I can't remember if it was on January 27th. So if you wanted to go back and look at the full quote, you could, but this is just part of it. But she said, boredom does not automatically create the conditions for creativity. Creativity is catalyzed by materials that inspire the imagination. So basically this idea, like it's good for kids to be bored, but you have to pull stuff out, like make stuff available for them to do so that they have ideas. So this creativity comes from having the things that they can tactily play with and do things with. And that's when boredom is a good thing. So she's not saying that you have to sit there with them the whole time. She gives some suggestions of maybe you just pull out a bunch of art supplies and set them on the table, you know, and you might start doing something with them for a second, and then it won't take very long before all your kids are there playing with it as well. And then you can like gradually sneak away. You're still like in the area, but you're not right there next to your kids having to be with them every second, you know, so that it's like they were a little bit bored and you gave them something to do. I've seen this happen when just my toddler, well, she's not a toddler, I'm just gonna keep calling her that, but she's almost 4. When she's home by herself with me, because our kids go to charter school one day a week, sometimes she gets a little bit bored. But if I go downstairs to the basement, because I'll tell her, go get some toys from the basement, and she doesn't really do it. But if I will go down and grab the blocks or like the marble tubes or something like that and bring them up and just set them down, I don't even have to do anything. I just set them down and then she will start playing with them and start building things. So it's just making things available. So maybe some art supplies. We don't have a specific like art area in our home, but I have art supplies that are available, and I have this tablecloth. Here it is, sorry, I left it out of reach. So I have this vinyl tablecloth that I like to put over our table so that I don't have to worry about our nice kitchen table getting paint on it, since we don't have like a table that's okay for people to paint on. Anyways, I know some people do, but we do not have that. So I have this big tablecloth that I really like to use, and I'll just put it on our table, and you can put out tons of art supplies. You could have like a bin that has art supplies that kids can have access to. Just make sure things are available that they can do tactily, you know, that they can be doing with their hands, and just fun things for them to do. So I just really love that quote from her. I already was a fan of letting kids be bored, but I loved how she added to make things available so that they have stuff to do in their boredom. So my 4th suggestion is to have crafts available. This kind of goes along with the last idea, just having activities available. But I love getting stuff from like Michael's. Here's a few. This is a fall activity. So from Michael's, I don't even know if ours is gonna be open anymore. I heard a rumor that ours is closing, which is so sad to me. So I don't know if it's true or not, but I love their crafts. You could also, Hobby Lobby has some great ones, and occasionally like Joann's as well. And so have this one, and I have this one. My daughter did another sand art one like this and had a blast doing it. So have different crafts available. There's tons at the craft store if you don't wanna have to create them yourself. Or you could get maybe a big project, like a big thing of sand art stuff, and just kind of split it between your kids, things like that. Just have a bunch of craft supplies available that they can get into, maybe some that you can help with, and some that you don't have to help that much. That's the key to a lot of these suggestions, is kind of mixing and matching them, because some of them need more parent involvement and some of them don't. So if you need a day to get more things done, just you, then pick some activities that they can do more by themselves. So have crafts that they can do by themselves as well, so that they're not constantly asking you what to do next. So my 5th suggestion is have your kids be involved in your hobbies. That might sound kind of selfish, but I don't think it is. Obviously, a lot of things you're interested in is eventually probably what your kids are gonna be interested in. Obviously, they'll have their own opportunities to discover their own talents and interests. But at the moment, they want to do a lot of the things that you're doing. So allow them to be involved in it. So this might be like a sewing kit, or just sewing options for them. Maybe you're sewing something and you have a more complicated project, and then you give them something simple. Maybe they can hand sew something. Or maybe a wood project. This is stuff I like to do. That's why I'm mentioning all these things. But I love working with wood. So maybe you could give them something they could do with wood, just something simple, or maybe just painting a piece of wood. They would probably totally love that. So involve them in your hobbies and things that you already want to be doing, and you don't have to put a lot of extra effort into it, and then they can be involved in it as well, and you can explain why you like to do it. It can just be this good bonding moment and not a whole lot of extra effort involved. So my sixth suggestion is to have puzzles. I think puzzles are so good. Again, this is something that I do enjoy doing as a child, and as a teenager, we spent tons of time on puzzles as a family, and I really, really like doing them. I don't spend as much time anymore, but just recently I pulled out this puzzle. This is Treasures of Restoration, which has to do with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that I belong to. And this is a 1,000-piece puzzle, and so we just pulled out a big like poster board, a really thick one, that we could move the puzzle because we don't really have a good place just to let it sit there. And so it kind of sat on our countertop, and then we could move it to the table. But sometimes if my kids were kind of just wandering around during the week that this puzzle was out, I would just put it down on the table and say, here's something for you to do. And my oldest would sit down and do puzzles. And so you can have very simple ones. I have simple ones for my younger kids. You can have really hard ones. This one is a harder one just in general because it's a lot of the same colors. But another one that I do enjoy that I haven't done in a while that's also 1,000 pieces is this lighthouse one. I really love lighthouses, and this one has more colors. So this would probably be a little easier for all my kids, and you can have them help you sort the colors, find all the edge pieces. There's just a lot of good involvement in that, and you're again doing something you enjoy doing, but they're doing it with you and they're keeping occupied and they're not on their screens. So my seventh suggestion, again, I don't know why I use my fingers to count because I just get all messed up anyway, but my seventh suggestion is to have games that they can just play by themselves or maybe together, and then games they need help with, from you. So one of our new favorites, this is not necessarily an educational game, but it's a good like motor skills type game, is Connect 4 Shots. And so it has all the balls back here, and you take them out and then you can bounce them on the table or on the ground, and you try to get 4 in a row. And my kids love this game a lot. Sometimes they fight a little bit. That's just what's gonna happen with games, but it's a good time for them to learn. So they really enjoy this game. So have a variety of games. I have done 2 game schooling videos. I think there's one for math and one for language arts. And so I'll make sure those are linked down below if you want to check those out, because I go into a whole bunch more depth about some of the games for school stuff that we like to use. But just have a variety of games so that if you can't play with them or don't want to, you can just tell them to go pick one of those games and they can play together. So my 8th suggestion is melty beads. These are some of the best things in the world ever. They're perler beads as well. I'll link some of the ones that we like down below. And these things keep my kids occupied for so long. You have to obviously set limits because they're not ironing them. You have to iron and melt them down. And so my kids can't do that. So my husband gives them like 1 melt a day. He'll go upstairs and melt what they've done, and that's all they get. But they love them so much that they save up all their allowance and they bought more. So they got some, my oldest got some for Christmas, and then they used all those beads, and they just got some more a few weeks ago, and they have been up there constantly. They'll spend several hours in the afternoon. So it doesn't necessarily have to be melty beads, but I think just having something your kids really love to do, if you see their interest in something is just, it keeps them occupied forever, then get more of it, or have them pay for more of it, if they're interested in it. And those kinds of activities are so great because half the time my kids don't even pay attention to this, like that they can watch a show, because usually in the afternoon they can watch a show and they'll just be up there and time will just fly and they'll totally forget. So if you have something they just really, really love to do, then they'll totally not even pay attention to the fact that they haven't watched anything that day and haven't been on a screen all day long. And it really is truly wonderful when that happens. I love those kind of days. So my 9th suggestion is to read books. They can read them by themselves or you can read them to them, depending again on the day. Have book options for them. Even my almost 4-year-old, if she's a little bit bored or something, I'll tell her to grab some books. She'll lay on the couch and she'll look at them. Sometimes this occupies her for like 30 minutes to an hour. just looking, and she'll tell herself the story. But it's important to establish this routine of doing that sort of thing. Kids aren't gonna just automatically do it, but if they know that's what's expected of them, they'll do it. And now she makes up her own stories, and we'll just spend tons of time there. But you could also have books that your older kids could read and say, you know, go grab your book or whatever and read your story. And that's just a wonderful thing to do as well. You could sit down and have your own personal reading time with them, which is what we do as part of homeschool. So they also feel like their needs have been met with mom. You know, we cuddle on the couch and read some stories together. And so they get that mom time, they get that cuddling, and their needs are being met. And then they're not so anxious to ask you about screen time or anything else like that. My 10th suggestion is to send them outside. Just boot them out the door. Sometimes that's really how it goes. I'm just like, get out, go away. Even in the snow, I'm like, go get your snow clothes on, go outside, we're done. Like, you're all going a little bit crazy and I'm going crazy, so go outside. And I think that's great. Sometimes going outside lasts for like 10 minutes. And sometimes on the lucky days, they're out there for hours. And they just are having so much fun. They're not fighting, you know, so with all these activities, this is the case. Some of them last for a very, very long time. And the same activity on a different day, it will last for 5 minutes. So you just kind of never know. So don't like give up on the activities just because they don't work one time, because they might work better a different day. You just never know what's gonna happen. But send your kids outside, send them into the backyard. In the summer, we like to have the sprinklers on or have the water table out, and they play in that for a while, or in the snow, which it's snowing right now. They can go outside and play in the snow and build forts and throw snowballs at each other. So just send those kids outside. Okay, so my 11th suggestion, there we go with number 11. I'm just getting weird here. My 11th suggestion is, I can't remember what it is. Let me look at my notes. Here we go. Have a place where they can make a mess. And so just have some place where they can make a mess. I am not a messy person. It kind of drives me crazy. But our basement is finished and it has their toys and stuff down there. And so they can go down there and they can build forts. There's pillows, you know, they can take their blankets down. There's an indoor, like, small trampoline, and they can play down there and do whatever they want. They still have to clean it up at the end of the day. That's still a requirement. But during that time, it's fine. They can go down there, they can be noisy, they can throw stuff, and they can just have a fun time. So have a space that you can do that, that's okay with you in your house. Some people might not care if that happens all over their house. I am one of those people where it's like, no, you go downstairs if you're gonna throw stuff. On our main level, you are not allowed to throw anything because there's a lot of stuff that can break. And so just have some guidelines for it, but then just allow them a place where they can create a mess. And then my 12th suggestion, we gotta keep on with the fingers because we are at the very end. We gotta keep them going here, is to use screens. I know this was supposed to keep them off screens, but to use screens in good ways. So to use them together as a family. Watch videos together, like a movie or something. For Christmas, we watch movies together. Sometimes for other little things, we'll watch movies together. Like video games, if you're playing video games, play them together as a family because that's just much more meaningful. If you have Pokemon Go, go for a walk together as a family and play that. You know, your kids might not whine at you so much because they get to play Pokemon Go and they get some exercise while they're doing it. So it's a win-win situation. So use screens in good ways and use them as a family, and then I don't think it's such a bad thing, and kids will be happy that they get some screen time, but it won't be the center of their universe. Every day won't revolve around screen time. It'll just be this special thing that they occasionally get, but they get to do all these other fun things all the rest of the day. And that's just really rewarding for me as a parent to see them really enjoy other things besides only thinking screen time can bring that joy into their lives. I don't want my kids to grow up thinking that they have to be on a screen to find happiness and joy. I want them to find that in all these other things and then be rewarded with a little bit of downtime on a screen. So those are my 12 suggestions for what kids could be doing instead of being on screens. I hope they were helpful. Please remember to put your ideas down below because we all need all the help we can get and we all benefit from everybody's ideas. And if you enjoy seeing these kind of videos, please give me a thumbs up and I will see you next time.